So we've gone through all of the process of showing you how to solve these problems with numbers. So now we're going to back off and just say, can you understand the theory in terms of what's going on in a reaction or a phase change? So if we look at, and we had to predict the sign of delta H, you can use certain things about the reaction to predict it. So of course, if it uses that word exothermic or something about heat energy being released, then that's going to definitely tell you that your H is negative. And then other cases when your H is negative, if you're going through a phase change, you have to release energy to condense because the molecules are getting closer and closer together. So they have to slow down. So they're losing energy. And the same thing for like when you're freezing, the molecules have to slow down and get closer and closer to each other. So you're losing energy. And you have to lose energy to make it happen. And then on the flip side, if you are looking at the opposite, so you would expect H to be positive if it's endothermic, or it says something about absorbing energy. Again, for vaporizing, if you're taking something, you're trying to vaporize it, you're putting energy into it to make it change. And then also melting is putting energy in and making your molecules move faster. So that's the delta H. Now, if we go ahead and we look at the delta S over here, so you would expect the delta S to be positive if you've already seen these before, less gas to molar gas, that's the number one. And if you don't have any gases, then, a solid to an aqueous or liquid. And then if you're going through a phase change and it's not completely clear, which probably these two would make it clear, then going from a solid to a liquid to a gas, that direction of any of those, solid to liquid, liquid to gas, that's going to give you a positive delta S because you're becoming more and more disordered with your energy spread out amongst a lot of states. But then in contrast, if you are looking over here and you're seeing, your gases are going to less gas, you have an aqueous or a liquid and it's becoming a solid, phase, gas phase, and then changing to a solid, then liquid, those are all minus delta S's. And then finally, there's some other things you can use. Of course, your predicted H and S to get to an answer. But if a reaction says it happens, and you already know that it does, like, I don't know, like breathing, you know that at room temperature, your body can convert oxygen to, it can attach it to hemoglobin, it can move on down. I guess I shouldn't say room temperature. I guess I should say 98.7 or 98.6, whatever your internal temperature is. But you know it does it at that temperature. So that's one thing. It's just like your own general knowledge. And then related to it, if the equation tells you, oh, this happens at only at high temperatures, but you are currently looking at like a low temperature, then it wouldn't be spontaneous. Or here, like gas in your car, it does combust at room temperature, that's something you already know. And then two more places is, so if something has a vaporization temperature, so like water, it vaporizes at 100, right? So if the temperature is above that temperature, then you would expect to be spontaneous for it to be vaporizing or to be vaporized. And the same, if it's above the melting point, you would think it would be spontaneous for it to already and automatically melt. So again, spontaneous. But then if it's below the vaporization, so if you've got some water and it's like at 50 degrees, but it vaporizes at 100, well, then that's not going to be spontaneous to vaporize. And same with the melting. And then finally, if you look at condensation or freezing, so that's going down. So if you're, going closer and closer together. So if you're above those temperatures, like if it's 25 degrees out and you're like, oh, I'm going to freeze some ice right now in 25 degrees, you know that that's not going to happen because the temperature's above those points. And then likewise, if it's below those, you're going to expect that to happen, so that wouldn't be negative. That's how you can kind of think through what you know and understand for getting these signs without even really having any numbers at all.